Mr. Robert Aragon.
Good afternoon. It's still afternoon.
Okay, you've heard the spiel, so we're going to start the questions.
Okay.
What education or experience has prepared you to be New Mexico State Auditor?
Aside from my walk in life, being a dad, being a husband, going to school, I graduated from the Harvard of the Rio Grande, UNM, got my undergrad there, got my JD, started practicing, continue to practice to this day in private practice. But more importantly, I've just been a citizen who has become somewhat frustrated with why New Mexico seems to be stuck in where we're at. Having talked to friends and neighbors, standing at the soccer game, trying to figure out why New Mexico just can't seem to move forward. What makes me most qualified is that I've listened. And I've come to this stage in my life where I want to do something about it. My background in the legislature, having been the vice chair of Appropriations and Finance, having balanced budgets, put budgets together, being on the House and Senate Conference Committee that put balanced budgets together, I've done that. I've served on the Board of Regents at Eastern New Mexico. I was the president. We floated several bond issues, so I'm very familiar with that. I've had the unique opportunity to help rewrite the charter in Albuquerque back in 1989. I'm familiar with governance. I've had the opportunity to serve both Democrats and Republicans, both as transition team members for both the Democrat and the Republican. Served mayors before, but most importantly, I want to serve you.
Thank you. Mr. Aragon, in your piece that you recently wrote for the Albuquerque Journal, you said, I quote, "I pledge to be a watchdog for New Mexican taxpayers and hold our public officials and employees accountable for their spending," end quote. Please explain how you will do that.
Well, I think I want to redact a little bit of that. As opposed to a watchdog, I decided I needed to be a pit bull for the taxpayers in New Mexico. So first things first, let's get somebody there who certainly understands the complexities of state government. So how we get there is very simple. First of all, you have to be very familiar with all levels of government. I currently serve on the State Board of Finance. So we have begun to view firsthand, not from the macro level that, let's say you were in the state legislature, you might view, but from the very micro level, what's happening at the core of business in New Mexico. How we hold folks accountable is, first of all, apply the law. We have a state auditor's law. We should apply it fairly and equitably. Two quick examples. In New Mexico, we have a State Auditor's Act. There are over 20% or over 200 entities who are late in their filing. Nothing happens. We have colleges who are 8 years behind. Nothing happens. So what do? We expose them. The law says that we are compelled to give a report to the DFA as well as to the legislature. I think the report is owned by you and the taxpayers and the citizens. So not only will the legislature have it, but more importantly, the taxpayers will have it. And that's how we begin to hold them accountable, have transparency, and make sure that everyone complies with the law.
Thank you. I think you need to step one big step forward. I think that might stop the feedback. We'll try that.
We'll try that.
Okay, the next question is a long one.
Okay.
The New Mexico Public Schools Finance Authority, commonly known as PSFA, was established years ago to oversee roofing projects for the state's public schools. Today, its budget has grown to millions of taxpayer dollars and encompasses oversight of all phases of school construction. The PSFA used to post financial information on its website until the New Mexico Business Coalition started questioning its financial reporting. And until we started questioning how contracts changed in their amount after they were supposedly closed, and we questioned the practice of sole sourcing contracts for oversight to out-of-state companies. Even though PSFA employed people to do just that, would you consider auditing this agency? Why or why not?
Yes, absolutely, because the law requires us to do that. Now, this particular entity was created as a result of a 2002 Supreme Court case, Zuni versus the State Board of Education, if that's what it was back then. And what happened is we created an entity that has no accountability to anyone. And most compelling, it has no accountability to the taxpayers of New Mexico. And as such, you see the kinds of abuse that we're talking about in the article that you alluded to earlier, Carla. We have an entity that has created this massive bureaucracy. I had the opportunity, I would say privilege, but it was more an opportunity to question these folks at the State Board of Finance. And I asked them one compelling question. The compelling question was this: what efforts have you done to improve the quality of education? And they could not point out to one specific example of that. That is indicative of a bureaucracy going wild. So in answer to your question, absolutely we will audit them, and absolutely we will have the results made, not just to the legislature and DFA, but more compelling to each and every one of you.
Thank you. Now I've got a yes or no question that I will have a follow-up
I'm a
question
lawyer,
to.
we don't do that.
I know. Try it. Is it the role of the state auditor to hold public officials accountable?
Yes.
How will you determine when to take action, and how will you assure actions are nonpartisan?
We follow the law. And anyone who is not strictly adhering to the law, I don't care what party they're from, they will be held accountable. I also have the privilege of being an attorney. If I find that there is a prosecutor who is not willing to prosecute, and I see that happening in New Mexico today, cases have not been prosecuted. If I have an attorney general who refuses to do that, I will petition the court to allow us to prosecute our own cases, because I do have the authority to do that and will. In answer to your question, I will do anything and everything is necessary to not only make sure the law is abided, but also enforce strictly regardless of party.
Thank you. Please tell the hiring committee why you believe you are the best candidate to represent New Mexicans as the state auditor.
Well, I did get my wife to agree to marry me, so we can start there. But most importantly, I am not a career politician. I had a time in my prior life, in my early 20s and late 20s, where I served in the legislature. After that time, we left to raise a family, to try to start a business, support ourselves, and try to have a good community. Why I'm the best candidate is because I bring that to the state auditor's office. And I believe far too many times we have elected officials who forget that element, that we're one of you. And as a result of that, they tend to be isolated and start to begin to think that we can't do without them. Well, my intention is to serve and only serve. I'm not running for this office to run for the next office. I'm running for this office solely to be your state auditor. I will be accountable to you. I will bring transparency to the office. Any and every report is not the possession of the auditor, but rather of the taxpayer. And anyone who comes in who wants to inspect any records, those records will be yours, not mine, but yours. And that commitment makes me the most qualified candidate to be your state auditor.
Thank you.
That's it?
That's it.